can't remember what you had said about how you ended up in Mexico yourself, because you're in Mexico City right now, right?
Yeah, I'm in Mexico City right now. So I
Okay.
actually lived in Mexico when I was younger. I did a
Okay.
foreign exchange type program. I had two options. I could go to Spain for a semester, or I could come to Mexico and stay here for a few years based on the same price. So I was a couple years ahead in high school, graduated high school with my associate's degree, which is like a 2 year college in the US, community college, junior college. And
Okay.
so I was thinking, well, I don't really want to graduate that young. I kind of want to have the college experience. And I had a bunch of scholarships and grants and all that stuff. So came down to Mexico, knew that I was coming down here to learn Spanish and learn it well. I grew up on a farm in eastern Washington state, so the plan at the time was, well, learn Spanish and then come back to the farm, and then I can manage all these people that work for us. And life took me in a different direction, but came down. Originally was going to stay for a semester, ended up spending a couple years here, and then stayed here and worked here for a bit too. So I was actually in Guadalajara the first time around. Went back to the U.S. after that, did the corporate thing for decade or so. Realized that I was quite miserable doing that, and then always wanted to go back to Mexico or somewhere in LatAm, or even just somewhere abroad for that matter. And when COVID hit, I was in California living a high rent lifestyle and lost my job. They shut everything down. So I got pretty extreme. Again, I knew I was going to go abroad at some point. I was already kind of mentally going through that process, downsizing my life, getting more into minimalism, getting rid of the cars, getting rid of the bills. So I was already taking those steps. But when COVID hit, that just accelerated the process. Sold everything and then went down to El Salvador to work for a bit on a project. And then after El Salvador, when you're moving anywhere, especially abroad or even in your own country, it's kind of like, where do I want to live? What kind of lifestyle do I want to have? What kind of people do I want to hang out with? Do I want mountains? Do I want desert? Do I want rivers? Do I want oceans? It was kind of one of those things. And then I realized, well, you know what? I've been wanting to go back to Latin America for some time. I was already down, I was in El Salvador working for a bit. So maybe I'll just, instead of going straight back to the US and figuring out what to do, I'll just go to Mexico City for a week and just see how I like it. And at that time, I'd already gone through the activity of writing down a list of at least like 10, 12 things that I really enjoy in a city. So I lived in Houston, Texas for a few years. Didn't realize that I couldn't stand having flat terrain. I never thought of that before. It drove
I
me
love the
nuts.
mountains. Me too, brother. Yeah.
I grew up on the West Coast, so like it can't be a flat city. It has to have mountains. Can't really see it out
Hmm.
there, but there's mountains all around here. We're in a giant valley, so that was the thing on the list. Perfect springtime weather year round. That was a big thing for me. After living in Houston, not so fun, the weather extremes. I lived in California for 10 years and I love the weather in California. So I needed something like that. So I had already taken a lot of the steps after the El Salvador project, came to Mexico City for a week, decided I liked it. Like, okay, well, maybe next time I'll come back for 2 weeks and then I'll go back for a month. And then I came back for 3 months. And then I came back for 6 months. And after I did a 6 month stint, I realized, okay, I'm definitely going to live here. Got my residency, locked down a place, and I've been here officially living for 2 years now. So I always tell guys, if you want to do that, there is a process. For me, it was a little easier since I'd already lived in Mexico when I was younger. I already spoke Spanish. I already know the lay of the land. I already have a good network of people down here. So that was a pretty easy transition. In fact, it was easier than moving within my own country just because I had done it before and I did it when I was so young. So a lot of those heebie-jeebies you get like, oh my God, I'm going to a new country and oh, it's a new language and oh, I don't know any of the customs or the traditions. I went through all that when I was 18. So me in my early 30s, like, all right, it just seems natural to go back to Mexico. And I was looking at other countries, but for precisely that reason, I didn't want to go through that acculturation process again. Mexico's always kind of felt like home to me. I'm originally from Texas, grew up in Washington State on a farm with a ton of migrant workers, and then lived in San Diego for almost 10 years. So Mexico doesn't feel foreign to me. It's never felt foreign to me. So it just seemed like a logical transition for me to just come back down here and post up here and make it my home.